everybody. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, a workforce development consultant with the Kent ISD. And I'm so delighted to have Jeannie Kane with us today. She's a forensic scientist and she's in the Latent print unit. So we're going to learn more about that. Welcome, Jeannie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeannie Kane. I am in the Latent print unit at the Michigan State Police Forensic Science Lab located in Grand Rapids.
Yay. So Jeannie, here in our career chats, we love to take our mentors back to the high school age where some of our viewers are. And when you were 15 or 16, did you think you would grow up to be a forensic scientist? Tell us what your thoughts were.
So when I was 15 or 16, I had no idea what I wanted to do, honestly. And I wasn't even really thinking about it when I was that age. But I think some of the telltale signs that led me into my career path was I loved AP biology, I loved chemistry, I loved my science classes. And interestingly, one key point is I loved art. And visual acuity is really important to be a latent print scientist. You have to have a really good eye. So that's one interesting piece about my background that helped me with my career path. I also loved watching CSI Miami. So I did have a little bit of inspiration from a TV show as well.
And we'll definitely get into some of the myths of that as we continue talking about your job. But I love that you pulled out a skill because as a career developer, I try to help young people understand you have things that other people don't. So visual acuity, I love that you called that special skill out, and art as well. But you like in your science classes, and so you're going through high school, getting good grades, I assume, working hard. How did you start to make a decision of what you wanted to do after high school?
It happened in college, actually. I started studying to be a speech pathologist, and I changed my major to be a biochemistry major. And as I was starting to research careers online, I learned about forensic science and I just read up on all of the different disciplines on the Michigan State Police website, actually. And I was doing research in college at the time and working in a lab. And that was when I really started to visualize myself working in a laboratory setting. And I really loved the different job duties and technology that each of the different disciplines was describing. So I could really envision myself, serving my community through a subject, science, that I loved. And it turned out to be a really good fit for me.
And I love that. And I think also I want to point out that you went to college with one idea and then you had to switch. And I guess I want to take you back to high school. Had you done any job shadows or career exploration? How did you even start with the speech path? Because I want to help kids normalize that it's a process.
Yes, I had some family friends who were speech pathologists. And so I actually never job shadowed them, but they spoke to me about their job. And I thought, maybe that's something I would like to do. So, but yeah.
When did you know that it wasn't a good? What was that rub? And then how did you get the courage to make the change? Because that's a hard decision sometimes.
It is. It was after my freshman year of college. I had taken an introduction to speech pathology class and there wasn't that excitement for me. And I was actually taking an introduction to chemistry class for that major. And with chemistry, I was so excited and intrigued. And finding my confidence to learn chemistry, that's what made me switch to be a biochemistry major because I really wanted to challenge myself and I didn't feel that I was being challenged in my current major. So it's okay to switch.
Yes, and to hear that there was joy in the chemistry, that you were excited to go to class. I think young people you got to pay attention to the insides of how you're reacting.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, you switched over to biochemistry. You started researching. I want to point that out that you were the one doing some research to try to continue to refine and figure this out. You were taking that action step. How did you, did someone guide you to the Michigan State Police? website, or is that something you just, as you were researching, found out, oh, this is an employer of the CSI type of job?
Mhm. Yes. So again, it was actually a family member who suggested I pursue forensic science. And my perception in undergrad was that forensic science was a really competitive and difficult field to get into. And there is some truth to that. However, it is not impossible. And I think that perception that it was such a hard job to get kind of deterred me from wanting to do it. But after some time and thinking about it and reading about, what forensic scientists do, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put myself out there and we'll see what happens.
That's some great wisdom, career mentor. We love that. Put yourself out there. Let's put that on a bumper sticker. So you're in college then, you decide on forensic science. Did Grand Valley have a specific program of forensic science, or did you have to kind of hobble together a specific major?
So Grand Valley does not have a forensic scientist program. However, you do not need a forensic science degree to be a forensic scientist. In fact, I think it is almost better just to get a degree in hard science, like chemistry, biology, subjects like that. You want to have a good hard science background. So that's a good place to start. It doesn't have to be specific.
I love that, because sometimes the colleges do a good job marketing their programs. And so sometimes we feel like, oh, I have to go to a program that's forensic. So I love that. So just a hard science background. Did you do any internships as part of your college experience, just for young people to realize, is that a good thing or not?
Yes, internships are amazing experiences. I would highly recommend spending your summers seeking out different internships. I actually did a summer internship at an industrial chemical company, and I did some test method development for them. And I worked on just different projects and kind of exposing myself more to that laboratory setting.
Did you find out about that internship to help young people understand, how does one even find an internship? Did the college help you? Did you see it on Indeed? How did that work for you? Or somebody you knew networking?
Yes, I had an internal connection for that internship. So I kind of slid right in. So those connections are so important.
Yeah, if young people hear anything on these career chats, it's the networking, who you're meeting, how you're presenting yourself, that you're always kind of in an interview, always be doing your best all the time.
Yes.
So you had that internship, so you knew chemistry was the right thing. So as you approached graduation, tell us your story. What was happening next as you were approaching graduation?
Yes. So my last year of college was actually when the COVID pandemic hit. So we transitioned fully online. And during that time period, it was so difficult to network. I ended up taking just a year off to kind of figure out what I wanted my next steps to be. I was applying for jobs here and there and trying to get interview experience, which was a great learning process because coming out of college, you don't necessarily have that interview experience for like those big jobs that you want. So that was a great time to just kind of figure it out, learn from the interviews I had. And then I finally ended up getting a teaching position.
So you had this hard science training. Tell us about teaching. How did you decide to be a teacher?
Yes, I decided to be a teacher because I felt that it would be a great leadership opportunity. And I also wanted to have that experience mentoring younger people. And I was going to be using my science background to teach AP research, which I was so excited for. And it was a tough decision too, because I also had another job at a hospital lab on the table. But ultimately, I chose the teaching position due to it being full time. And there were some more practical aspects to choosing that position over the laboratory one. And it turned out to be such a fulfilling experience for me. So,
Yeah, and I think you're really showcasing how we don't have to have it all figured out. We take opportunities as we hear them, as we have conversations with people, things pop up, because this teaching position was actually at where you went to high school, right?
No, this is not where I went to high school,
Okay,
actually.
it's not where you went to
Different
high
high
school.
school.
Okay, so you're a teacher, you've been doing that, you're being a mentor to kids. What happened next that got you continuing down your journey?
Yes. So to continue on, I decided that I really wanted to go and pursue my master's degree. So I went on to get a master's degree in cell and molecular biology. And my specific goal was to get into the forensic lab. So I went in my brain, I was like, how am I going to make connections with people at my target organization? And those opportunities just presented themselves. Before I even started grad school, a forensic scientist from the lab I now work at came and spoke at a cell and molecular biology class. And I was talking to my academic advisor about how I wanted to be a forensic scientist. And he mentioned that opportunity. So I went and took it and went and met her.
So again, a very concrete action step. You took the opportunity to approach that guest speaker and it led to an internship, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I hope everyone's hearing this, how active GD was in this process and that you don't leave those opportunities on the table. So help us understand that connection though. You obviously followed up after being a guest speaker and you had coffee? Like, do you just invite someone up for coffee? Do you do a Zoom call? How does that work?
Yes. So after she presented, I introduced myself to her and you have like a little casual conversation with them and ask them if you can follow up via email. And she had mentioned that lab tours were an opportunity on the table. So I asked her if I could take a lab tour. I met with scientists from all of the disciplines and I expressed my interest in forensic science by asking them really good questions. People will remember you when you ask them really good questions about the work they do. It shows a lot about your interest in the career. So after that, after I had done my lab tour, I personally thanked every person that I spoke with. That's a really important key because so many people will come in, that follow up after the fact really shows that, you're different. So that was how I ultimately got my internship, was just by following up, expressing my interest and thanking everyone for their time.
It's fantastic. You are, again, giving such great information for young people that are exploring their next steps. So I appreciate you sharing your journey up to this point. I do want to get in, because obviously we know you got hired there, you had your internship, and there you are now. Help us understand what that job is like, what it is, and maybe lead into, after you explain kind of what the job is, how it's the same or different than those CSI shows.
Of course. So the latent print unit processes evidence for latent prints. And what we do with those prints is we take them. So we could have a latent print obtained from a crime scene. And we're going to search that print in a database against known prints. And this is how we identify suspects in crimes. And ultimately, it provides public safety agencies with a name to a suspect in a crime, which is huge because there are only two forensic science disciplines that have that capability. That's DNA and latent prints. And those are like the major pieces in a criminal investigation. So that was one thing that really surprised me, that I was like, wow, when I got into this job. So
because you're truly making an impact on people's lives with
yes,
your science.
Absolutely. And you need to be very objective. Like, you not only try to identify people, but you also need to be objective and exclude people, because we don't want to be finding the wrong person connected to a crime. So we are very scientific and very careful with the way that we approach how we are identifying our latent prints.
So when you watch CSI Miami, how it shows up on TV is probably different than what's the biggest difference of TV versus reality?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that crime scenes are glamorous and we show up in Hummers and suits. That is not the case. So we show up in crime scene fatigues. Crime scenes are incredibly dirty. So we are not in our nice clothes. We don't show up in a Hummer. We show up in our crime scene truck. I think that's the biggest thing that people seem to think is, what goes on here, but not the case. Another misconception is that we get answers like that, like in less than an hour. We can maybe do that if the case is like a homicide and it's like very urgent, but typically the turnaround time for our cases is about, can take anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, depending on how big the case is. So there is a certain amount of time that it takes.
So one thing that I've already learned from you, which is a little surprising, when I was thinking of latent print unit forensic scientist, I still pictured you in the lab. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you actually go to the scene to help collect the evidence and then analyze it.
Yes, that is part of our job. Crime scene is a whole nother forensic discipline that we are involved in. So we will go to crime scenes and collect latent prints and various pieces of evidence. And then those pieces of evidence come to us into the lab. We will process the evidence in the lab, and then our comparisons or our analysis of the latent prints is actually done on screen. So there's a lab component, and then there's also an on-screen component where we are working in our offices.
And someone told me, who was a crime scene technician, told me it's not what you see at the crime scene, it's what you smell. So heads up, everybody. Like she said, it's not a nice thing to be at necessarily.
Yes, it's a dirty, it's not for everyone, but it's very necessary to keep our community safe.
Yes, I bet you that's very rewarding. What would you say is your favorite part of your work then, Jeannie, and the least favorite?
Yes, my favorite part of the job is looking at the fingerprints. It's almost like a puzzle. And being an artist, I just have such an appreciation for like all the variety of detail in fingerprints that makes all of us unique. And it just brings out the beauty that all of us are, individual and everyone is so different. And, giving being able to provide an agency with a suspect name is the most rewarding part of what we do in our jobs. I would say that my least favorite part of the job is probably the repetitive documentation. We have to document a lot of the things we do, and sometimes it can get repetitive. But once we have that muscle memory of like, we need to click here next and we need to fill out this form next, it just becomes, muscle memory and it becomes a breeze.
Well, I have lots more questions. We have about 10 minutes left. I would love to know if there's a case that stands out that you still are so proud that you were part of, or maybe one that was super challenging that is why you remember it. What's one of those cases that maybe stands out to you?
That is a great question, actually. So currently I'm in a 2-year training program. So I haven't touched a super large case yet. It actually takes a latent print scientist 2 years to be fully trained as an examiner. And then after that, it takes another 2 years of supervised casework. So the responsibility of having like a significant case on my plate has actually not quite happened yet. I get to help out here and there with bits and pieces of cases. So I am able to scan latent print lifts in for our examiners. And I'm also able to obtain known impressions from our APHIS databases for criminal investigations. However, I have not gotten to that point where I'm taking on casework by myself yet. So it's a process.
That's okay. We'll check back with you in a couple of years. But I think what is great to hear is you just spelled out and helped set some expectations that this isn't something that you just graduate from college and do, that there is additional training. So let's focus on the education just for a minute, because you mentioned hard science as an undergrad. Obviously, you got your master's, you get hired in, and then there's on-the-job training that is going to continue happening. I love that we can spell it out for young people. So if
Yes.
you were to recommend somebody who thought, this is what I want to do, is there anything else you'd want to recommend as far as that pathway? Things they could even be doing in high school to get ready?
I think networking and getting internship experience is the most important part of getting a job in forensic scientist. If you can show that you've demonstrated interest over time, that will speak volumes to a potential employer, and they'll say, wow, this person has experience. They're showing that they really want to do this. And yeah, even volunteer work. I would say that if you can show that you are serving your community and you have that selflessness, that also speak volumes to a forensic scientist employer. They want to see that you are willing to serve your community.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So there's some occupations that, there's some really obvious volunteering type suggestions I give young people, but I'm trying to think, where could they get some, obviously service, but even some science related volunteer work. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, if there's anything that you might recommend. Maybe advanced science classes in high school would be a good step while they can.
Yes, definitely advanced science classes help. Even volunteering in a research lab. I volunteered at the Van Andel Research Institute actually while I was in college actually. However, I do know that they have opportunities for high schoolers as well. So just the more exposure that you can get in a lab setting, the better. So
yeah, heads up, young people, Van Andel Institute here in Grand Rapids. Go to their website and figure that out. That's great. So you're learning on the job, gaining that expertise. You had mentioned visual acuity as some of the natural skill set. Attention to detail, obviously. What else would you like, as we talk to young people who are considering this, to kind of do some self-assessment? Other qualities or traits that you've noticed in your peers, maybe people you admire in your profession?
yes, some of the personal attributes that would make you a very successful forensic scientist would be being a great team player, having good communication skills, and just having those really good interpersonal skills and being able to talk to all kinds of people because we work with the public, we speak with, grade schoolers, officers, we have to interact with all kinds of people. So being able to, know your audience and being able to talk to a lot of people is really important part of this job.
Yeah, I thank you for affirming those soft skills that they try to teach in high school, and that when they do the group projects and work on this all applies to the world of work. That's great. Did your teammates have the opportunity to go to court? Like, do they have to testify sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. We do have to testify in court occasionally to our work. And interestingly, latent print examiners get called into court more for not making an identification in a case. So typically, they'll try to put you on the spot. Why didn't you find a latent print here? And what they may not understand is that there are so many factors that go into whether a fingerprint is laid down or not. The environment, the person may not have, as greasy hands, so they don't sweat a lot and it might not leave a fingerprint impression. There's so many variables that can happen and lead to fingerprints not being found on evidence.
Very interesting. Now, at the Michigan State Police where you work, there's obviously different parts of the crime scene sciences. Is this one that you see yourself sticking with? Are there pathways for you now that you're getting into this that you think, oh, that might be good too? Is there other jobs within the system that you are qualified for too?
Yes, absolutely. There is so much potential for growth as a latent print scientist. You are able to move up into higher positions from being like a supervisor. You could also become a lab director. You could become an inspector. So it's just growing up and, overseeing more and more of the whole forensic science division and keeping track of all that. So there are lots of opportunities for growth.
So this is one of those questions, Jeannie, that is just my own curiosity. When you go to parties and you say you're a forensic scientist, I imagine that people are really intrigued by that. Is that a positive thing in your world, or is it like you want to make up something that's more like, say, your teacher, because maybe you don't have to talk about your work so much? How does that play out for you in your social life?
This is knowing your audience for sure, being socially aware, because you may be in a setting that you don't want to share you work for the state police. So you do need to be careful, and I'm very careful. If I'm not feeling quite confident in a certain setting, I'll just say I'm a scientist and go no further. So yeah, you want to know your audience. You want to be careful not to put any targets on your back because, there can be sensitive information that you are handling here, and you want to not only protect yourself, you want to protect the people that are involved in your case. So that's really, really important. And it's also really important how you carry yourself out in public if you do choose to tell somebody that you work for the Michigan State Police.
I appreciate that. I think those are good insights as young people mature of how to handle those situations. Um, One more quick question, and then I'll have you share your final word of wisdom. Michigan State obviously was your dream employer, and you're there, which is wonderful. What are other places that forensic scientists might work besides Michigan State Police?
Of course, there are lots of actually smaller public safety agencies that have their own labs. They have their own crime scene teams. Grand Rapids Police Department has their own latent print unit and their own crime scene team. The only difference is that they only take care of Grand Rapids, whereas the Michigan State Police has a much wider region that we take care of. Forensic scientists can also go and practice for themselves. If you work for the Michigan State Police, though, we sign a contract saying that we will not be an independent contractor and forensic scientist within the state of Michigan. So if you wanted to be an independent practitioner, you would have to relocate to another state. So that's something to think about. There's also you can also go into academia and teach forensic science classes. So lots of opportunities. You don't have to just stay and do one thing.
And did you say, is it pretty competitive to get the jobs? I mean, I would imagine they're pretty sought after.
Yes, these positions get hundreds of applications per position. So really sticking out and having inside connections is going to be your key.
Yeah, you've been so great, such a great mentor today. Yeah, anything final that you would just like to share to young people who are trying to figure this all out?
Absolutely. Just keep an open mind. Don't get discouraged. It took me 4 years of planning to get where I am today. And I got my dream job out of it. And you have to be so, so patient. Be patient with yourself. Be happy and appreciate those times of growth because it will really help you in the future.
Yeah, that's so great. Before I let you go, still, are there lab tours being available to people? Like if they did want to follow up that next step, would they call the Michigan State Police Department, or how might they pursue that? Are you able to give out your name or email? Like everyone's different as far as what they want to recommend for that next step. Just have them call the main one on 3 Mile, is it?
Yes, yes. So you can contact our administrative unit and they will coordinate and set up lab tours for anyone who is interested. So yes, absolutely. We always welcome people into our lab to come and see our facility. It's beautiful. It's brand new. It just got built a couple years ago, and we have state-of-the-art equipment that we are excited to talk about and share with the public. So we'll always love connecting with the community that we serve.
Well, you've been a great mentor today. Thank you so much, Jeannie. Lots of love in that chat right now for you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. I'm so happy that I could take the time today to talk to you more about what I do, and I hope I have inspired some of you to pursue a career in forensic science.